Why 335 horsepower muscle cars were actually 400-plus horsepower. In March 1968, a factory Ford Mustang 428 Cobra Jet trapped a blistering 106.64 miles per hour on the quarter mile. The official brochure claimed it made just 335 horsepower. Physics dictates that pushing a 3,500-pound piece of Detroit steel past 105 miles per hour requires vastly more power than that. The truth, the horsepower numbers printed in the 1960s were never meant to be accurate. They were engineered to be legal. For decades, the popular myth has been that Detroit lied to dodge rising insurance premiums. But insurers did not truly sink their teeth into the issue until around 1969. By 1968, these numbers were already being manipulated like chess pieces. In that exact same hot rod issue, a 330-horsepower Pontiac Firebird Ram Air 400 trapped 105.88 miles per hour. If horsepower predicts speed, why were these stock engines constantly outrunning their own paperwork? Who actually benefited from this mechanical perjury? Hit like, share this video with fellow gearheads, and comment below which classic V8 you think had the most fake numbers. Before the early 1970s, the real battleground wasn't just the asphalt, it was the NHRA Rulebook. If Detroit wanted to dominate drag strips to drive showroom sales, they had to beat the math. The NHRA classified stock and superstock cars using a strict, unforgiving formula, the factory shipping weight divided by the advertised horsepower. This ratio became the industry's ultimate loophole. Let's look at the forensics. Take a 3,500-pound vehicle. If a manufacturer honestly declared a 400 horsepower output, the ratio sat at 8.75 pounds per horsepower. That forced the car into the heavy-hitting Class A, pitting it against purpose-built monsters. But if engineers tucked away the real dyno sheet and printed 335 horsepower on the brochure, the ratio instantly inflated to 10.45 pounds per horsepower. With a single stroke of a pen, that 400 horsepower weapon dropped into a lower class. It was a legal mathematical slaughter against legitimate 335 horsepower competitors. How was this legal? Under the pre-1972 SAE gross standard, engines were tested on dynos in idealized setups with minimized accessory drag. Engineers knew multiple truths existed for one engine, and marketing simply chose which truth became public record. Yet this deception wasn't solely for the track, it was dictated from corporate boardrooms. Through 1969, General Motors enforced a strict internal shadow edict: no midsize or compact model could exceed a power-to-weight ratio of 1 horsepower per 10 pounds of vehicle weight. Engineers didn't just build engines, they built alibis. Take the 1970 Buick 455 Stage 1. Former Buick engineer Dennis Manor revealed the engine was publicly rated at exactly 360 horsepower. Why? Because the car's shipping weight was precisely 3,603 pounds. The 10-to-1 math dictated the brochure. The rating was a fabricated bureaucratic shield, hiding the fact that the hardware was actually churning out roughly 372 horsepower at 5,200 RPM. Detroit wasn't merely underrating cars, they were reverse engineering the rulebooks to manufacture legal cheating. But how could a team of engineers submit a fabricated number to the NHRA without triggering a massive fraud lawsuit? They didn't lie on the paperwork, they just turned the dyno room into a staged crime scene. And that's where the real dark arts of engineering began. To understand how Detroit manufactured these legal illusions, you must step inside the dyno room. Under the notoriously loose pre-1972 SAE gross standard, engineers didn't just inflate numbers to sell cars, they weaponized the testing procedure to intentionally suffocate engines on paper. They did this by turning the engine itself into a restrictor plate. Take the legendary Rochester Quadrajet carburetor. It possessed a massive airflow potential of up to 750 cubic feet per minute, thanks to its cavernous secondary barrels. But during factory calibration for the Dyno, engineers would intentionally over-tighten the secondary air valve spring. The engine simply couldn't generate enough vacuum to pull those massive secondaries open. On paper, the V8 was breathing through a straw, producing a mathematically pathetic number. On the track, a racer with a flathead screwdriver could back that spring tension off a quarter turn, instantly unlocking 40 stolen horsepower. If manipulating the intake wasn't enough, they sabotaged the exhaust. Classic Phi-8 engines utilized a cast iron heat riser valve in the exhaust manifold to aid cold starts. Engineers designed these valves to accidentally only open about 60% during high RPM dyno pulls. SAE inspectors never tore down the exhaust to check internal clearances. This created a flawless invisible bottleneck that choked peak horsepower naturally without violating any testing rules. Finally, they locked the ignition. To achieve maximum horsepower, an engine requires perfectly advanced spark timing as RPM climbs. Factory engineers installed deliberately heavy centrifugal springs inside the distributor. During the SAE test, these springs prevented the mechanical advance from fully deploying, keeping the spark retarded. The engine ran smoothly and legally weak, but in the staging lanes, mechanics simply popped the distributor cap, tossed those heavy springs into the trash, and installed $2 performance springs. The timing advanced, and a compliant street engine immediately turned into a violent track predator. These dyno room tricks were clever, but they were nothing compared to what Ford and Chevy did when they weaponized these loopholes to build actual illegal race cars disguised as street commuters. Stop looking at the glossy brochures and start looking at the time slips. Once you abandon the idea that published horsepower was a static truth, a clear pattern emerges: factory packages that looked mathematically tame on paper but functioned as brutal race programs on the asphalt. Here are the smoking guns. In early 1968, Ford Motor Company needed a weapon to stop Chevrolet's dominance. They debuted the 428 Cobra Jet at the February 1968 NHRA Winter Nationals at Auto Club Raceway, Pomona. Ford specifically built 50 special Cobra Jets equipped with severe weight-saving deletions, stripping out the radio sound deadener, undercoating, and heater. On its official paperwork, Ford claimed the engine produced a modest 335 horsepower. Then, the green light dropped. Driver Al Joniak absolutely crushed the SSE class competition, posting an outstanding 11.49-second run at over 120 miles per hour. Physics dictates that you do not push a steel-bodied late 1960s Mustang past a 120 miles per hour trap speed with a mere 335 horsepower. The NHRA themselves later officially recognized that 335 horsepower rating as laughably low. Ford had engineered a massive mechanical advantage hiding behind a conservative rating to slide the Cobra Jet into a favorable class. These dyno room tricks were clever, but they were nothing compared to what Ford and Chevy did when they weaponized these loopholes to build actual illegal race cars disguised as street commuters. If Ford's deception was about dominating the track, Chevrolet's was about gatekeeping the streets. Operating under GM's strict anti-racing politics, Corvette chief engineer Zora Arkus Duntov, alongside engineers Fred Frinka and Cal Wade, quietly developed the L88 as an extreme pure race package disguised as a production option. The brochure comparisons from 1967 look like intentional sabotage. The standard L71 street engine was proudly rated at 435 horsepower. Meanwhile, the track-ready L88, requiring massive airflow and 103-octane race fuel, was bizarrely rated at just 430 horsepower. Why would a buyer pay an extortionate $1,722 premium when factoring in mandatory heavy-duty parts on top of a $4,388 base coupe for 5 fewer horsepower, no radio, and no heater, because the brochure was a weaponized deterrent. Franke and subsequent dyno tests proved the L88 was actually churning out between 540 to 580 horsepower. By deliberately publishing a lower number and enforcing a punitive price tag, Duntov manipulated the paperwork to filter out unqualified buyers, keeping this volatile race engine out of the hands of unskilled street drivers. This deception wasn't limited to rogue engineers dodging sanctioning bodies, it was also systematic corporate compliance. Through 1969, General Motors executives enforced a strict shadow edict: mid-size and compact cars should not exceed a ratio of 1 horsepower per 10 pounds of shipping weight. Buick engineer Dennis Manor designed the potent 455 Stage 1 and mathematically tailored its paperwork to survive the boardroom. Because the car's official shipping weight was 3,603 pounds, Manor explicitly rated the engine at exactly 360 horsepower. It perfectly satisfied the 10-to-1 corporate formula. Yet internal data revealed the hardware's true output was roughly 372 horsepower at 5,200 RPM. So the engine was engineered to dominate, but its rating was engineered purely to fit a bureaucratic equation. Detroit's engineers were brilliant, but the NHRA technical inspectors weren't blind. National Technical Director Bill Dismuke and Jack Hart realized that treating factory brochures as gospel was turning the stock classes into a joke. They came to a gritty, undeniable realization: a piece of paper can lie, but terminal velocity cannot. To combat the factory lies, the NHRA deployed the ultimate countermeasure, the Automatic Horsepower Factoring System, AHFS. If a 335 horsepower Mustang consistently crossed the quarter-mile traps at 106 miles per hour, the NHRA simply stopped believing Ford. They tossed the brochure in the trash, mathematically refactored the car's official horsepower based on its actual trap speed and elapsed time, and forcibly bumped the vehicle into a faster, more brutal class. The cat-and-mouse game on the asphalt was over. Raw performance became the new legally binding document. Yet the final nail in the coffin didn't come from angry track officials or insurance adjusters, it came from the government. The loophole era violently snapped shut in 1972. California enacted Vehicle Code Section 9950A law, mandating that any advertised horsepower for gasoline vehicles under 6,000 pounds strictly reflect the SAE Net as installed standard. You could no longer strip the water pump drop, the restrictive exhaust, and run tests in a sterile, idealized dyno room. By legally forcing manufacturers to test engines with all parasitic losses, attached California effectively outlawed the two truths loophole. When Detroit didn't suddenly find its moral compass, the legal definition of mechanical truth simply changed. The 1972 shift to the SAE Net testing standard officially killed the classic Detroit loophole, legally forcing engines to wear their parasitic losses in public. But the art of the factory lie never truly died. Today, if you strap a modern turbocharged BMW with a B58 or S58 engine or a Porsche 911 to a chassis dyno, you will often find them putting down their advertised crank horsepower directly to the rear wheels. Underrating didn't disappear, it just changed its accent. History, it seems, always repeats itself on the dyno. Treat every factory brochure like a courtroom statement, technically true under very specific conditions, but ultimately meaningless until the green light drops. What modern engine do you think is hiding the most horsepower from the factory today? Drop your dyno theories in the comments below, hit subscribe for more automotive forensics, and I will see you at the staging lanes.